Alright, welcome back to the JFK Assassination video number 59. It's now 14 February. We're just going to get back into this. We're still going to be with Oswald going to Mexico. I guess I'm going to call this a Mexican Takeout. So that's going to be the name of this episode. So I was just doing a comparison here and looking. If you look at the route, so Oswald went through Laredo. It's about, if you go by car, which is what a bus would be taking, the same route, and this is today, 1,362 miles, about almost 24 hours. So I'm sure, they had the interstate system back then, but, I don't know what the roads were like in Mexico. I'm sure it probably would have taken longer. But anyway, so that I'm just doing a comparison here. If you add in transportation today, it looks like it takes about 2 days, and that's today. So I'm kind of confused about the timeline on the numbers because it says it takes like 1 day for him to get from New Orleans to Mexico City, which I'm a little confused about. But even today, it would take 2 days on the bus. Another thing I'm confused about is why Mexico City? Okay. Why would Oswald go to Mexico City? He doesn't speak Spanish. Okay. It's a long, dangerous way to get there. And he could just, it's what, 1,362 miles. He could just as easily turn around and go to Canada. And they speak English there. It's easier to get around. It's safer. And it takes about the same amount of time. About 23 hours. Instead of 22, it takes 23 hours. Especially if you rode a public bus, you're going to get there faster. 1 day as opposed to 2 or 3 days. So that's one thing I'm a little confused about. Maybe he didn't know that he could go to Canada, that it would be closer. It is, October into September? So there's not going to be any snow. I'm just a little confused why he would go all the way down to Mexico. Like I said, he doesn't speak Spanish, and he's trying to... Maybe they didn't. No, they have a Cuban embassy in Canada at that time also. So they had a Russian and a Cuban embassy there. So he could do everything he wanted to right there. Okay? Not sure why he would have gone all the way to Mexico. Anyway, so just thinking about those things, and just my mind's constantly asking questions. Why this? Why that? I try to seek logical answers, and why do people do stuff that's not logical? That's what I question about. Anyway, so we're going to go on to the next thing here. Hold on. All right, so like I said, I'm also not just doing this to find out about Oslo. We're also, checking out other embassies in Mexico City. And again, we're going to check out embassies all over the world. Russian, Cuban, Chinese, North Korean, Syrian, Iranian, all these. We're going to check them out. Look at their security, so you can kind of get an idea how they're being monitored, most likely by the CIA or even the Mexican intelligence. So this is the location of the Chinese embassy. Not sure where this is at. Hold on one second. See if I can get an idea. Okay, yeah, I know where we're at now. So that that Russian embassy's like over here, and that Cuban embassy was like right over here somewhere, like that. So I don't know how long this embassy's been here. I don't know if it was the original Kuomintang embassy of the nationalists that was taken over by the communists, but they do have an embassy here. So let's take a look and see how they have this set up. Hold on one second. Oh yeah, let's take a look at photos. Let's see if we got any photos inside here. Alright. Looks like there's only 2 photos. That's what it's saying. Oh, that's the street view. Hold on a second. Not sure where that's at. Now, one thing that the Chinese are doing is they are sending out people all over the world, especially in Africa. They're setting up businesses. They're establishing businesses, mining companies in virtually every country in the world, and they're running it intelligence operations with those people through their embassies. Okay, so the Chinese are definitely expanding. They've been finding out about these Chinese monitoring police stations in Canada and the United States. I'm sure they got them in Mexico. I've heard they've had them in Australia. And what they do is they monitor Chinese nationalists, people that are on the outs for the Chinese government. They're monitoring them and keeping tabs on them. Yeah, see, there's kind of the embassy there. That's kind of a strange-looking embassy. The whole purpose, though, the Chinese purpose is to expand trade, to monitor, people that are on the outs with them, and to gain influence with the politicians in those countries, especially third world countries, so you can get them to vote your way, go along with what you want to do in the UN, other things like that. I mean, they're doing what a superpower country like the United States would be doing. Yeah, it looks like people are waiting for visas. Yeah, you see how they got these poles here? Now, a lot of countries have these ones. I don't know if they pull these out and put them over when they were going to use this gate. I've seen them where they actually, I think these actually drop down. They have like a, like a security guard over here. He pushes a button. These drop down. The gates open up. People can come out. People can go in. These are more permanent. You see how they got the trees. They got the little side security bunker here. And you see how they have these walls here. These are for blast protection. Okay? And you see how they've made this. I mean, very, very... I think this is probably an older original embassy, and then they've modified it to add these security precautions. There's another angle view of it. It's kind of odd they'd have this inner alcove here. You see how they've got a reinforced beam here, and this is a gate of some kind, but I guess these little posts will pop up out of the ground here. I mean, that's what I would be doing. So it looks like what they're doing is using maximum potential to expand their space. So they have a limited amount of space, and they're pushing it all the way out to the street, and then, they have less to worry about and to guard. Yeah, this looks like a street view. Alright, so we're on street view now. So yeah, that looks like that's the same spot. There's a gate there. There's a control, place. You got security cameras. Yeah, you can see this place has been there a while. You see how old these trees are here? How tall these trees are? They're not like new. You see how they push this wall almost to the maximum extent where there's hardly any sidewalk. And that's for security purposes there. Now it says that over here, yeah, see there's the consulate right there. That's where people go to get their visas to go visit China. And then over here is the embassy where the ambassador is at. Let's see what is here. It's like some kind of car place. Oh, it's a restaurant. Los Arcos seafood restaurant. Now, let's take a look here. You see, here's the wall of the embassy. You see how high that is? It's like 20 feet high. It's odd, though, that they've allowed these trees to stay here. You see these trees on the opposite side of the wall? And then you see that shack right there. Someone could easily jump up on this shack, put a ladder there, and boom, be over the wall. You see they got barbed wire. And you see how, yeah, you see the original wall probably used to go to about right there. And then they had like a walkway. And you can see how they've added it. They've expanded it out, pushed it out to where, yeah, it's kind of odd though. Seems like they'd have a higher wall there, because someone could easily just jump up here and jump up there. But you can get an idea of the buildings in there. Let's take a look. We're just doing this for security purposes. I like checking this shit out. Alright, so let's go down the street here. Oswald was never at the Chinese embassy, don't worry. So, yeah, you can see how they maxed this wall out. Here's another entrance. Now, this entrance here you don't have to worry about, because that's the Chinese consulate right there. So they're not going to have any FBI or any guys there, but they may have someone across the street from this gate. Oh yeah, you see how these pylons, they pop up out of the ground there? I like how they've added like this Mexican art, and then they've intermingled it with the Chinese stuff. That's pretty interesting. It is interesting that the Chinese culture, they really go for the dragon. And what I understand, there was a Texaquatl or whatever the guy's name, he was kind of a dragon or a snake also. So they have kind of a connection there with their, their ancient gods and stuff. Now, yeah, there you go. See, there's a tall building there. I don't know what that is, but you could easily, you see how this building has these little wooden panels over here that have little gaps. You can easily put a camera there. You see how they've got shades up here. Let's see. I don't know what CFE is. Somebody's put a camera there. Yeah, that would be a good place to monitor them from right across the street. Whether it's the federales or whether it's us, the good guys. And you can see they've got some kind of security there. Whether that's Chinese or federales. Let's see here. What is this? Okay, so yep. Looks like they've got some kind of parking garage here. That's kind of odd. They've got, okay, yeah, so they've got the same pylons that pop up. Look, they've got a big steel door. And look, you see he's got like a little control tower up there. You see they got the older part of the embassy here, and this is all brand new. Very, very heavy construction. You got a lot of good cameras there. The fence comes all the way up. You got a lot of good barbed wire. You got that there because this big ass tree is there. Now I don't know what this is. The Bardo Falso Chronica is probably some kind of art museum right next door. So that's the extent of their thing there. Let's take a look. So very cramped, very, the one good thing about this that they've done is they've made it that you can't just run some vehicle by slow because there's a lot of traffic here. You can't park a van up on the curb and monitor who's coming in. They can control both sides of the street. It looks like this is part of the consulate. And the sidewalks are bare minimum. Yeah, see, it's like a little bit of parking there. So they've got basically strategic control of the front of their embassy and street. This is a pretty crowded street, so it's going to be hard if they had like somebody, China has enemies just like America does. You've got these, in Xinjiang province out there, you've got these Muslim extremists just like Al-Qaeda. I think they have over, 1 million of these Muslims in prison out there, so they're going to have relatives and brothers that are going to want to seek revenge, and again, they're going to be looking. They're going to contract out with ISIS or Al-Qaeda, and they're going to be looking for vulnerable spots to hit the Chinese, okay? And, then there's Tibet, although you're not going to really have suicide bombers with Tibet. But this is a good way to control your embassy. Put it on a crowded street, and make it difficult to get in and out. Yeah, that seems to be the extent of it there. This is more of that consulate. So let's go back to a little God's eye view. Hold on one second. All right, let's take a look here. Yeah, there's that building. Oh, wow, look, Jesus has an office. There's the consulate. I wonder how far back this goes. Let's see. Hold on, I got to get my bearings here. It doesn't look exactly right. Yeah, hold on one second. Yeah, I don't know if they do this on purpose or what for security, but this is not where the Chinese embassy is. This is not the Chinese consulate because, like I said, I didn't see that restaurant next door. The tall building's not over there. But if you go one street back, there it is right there. So there's that tall building. Here's the restaurant parking lot. This is the Chinese embassy here. And you can see where the wall, they got actually quite of a big complex here, it looks like. Maybe even a back entrance right back here. Entrance and exit. So that's the embassy right there. That's pretty big. Actually, it's very big. You can see the outline of it. You see it goes back here. They got it pushed up against the wall here. And right here. So a very large, you can see it's over here. Got some kind of fountain or pool there. There's the art museum. And then across the street is the consulate. I don't know if this is all of their property also, but damn. This would be huge if it is. I don't think it is though. Looks like some kind of school. Maybe this is just the consulate. But anyway, so you got the idea. So we're going to move on now. So we're going to get into Sylvia Odio, but I want to do a little video about her. And I tried finding something on Cadet, couldn't find anything. Hold on one second. Let me check something. All right, yeah, I couldn't find anything on Cadet. It was just double checking. But we're going to come across an odd incident, but I'll just jump ahead. When Oswald gets out of New Orleans and out of Texas and into Mexico, he's visited, a group of people show up at Sylvia Odio, a Cuban who's living in Dallas, at her home. And like Patrick Hemming, a bunch of this same group that keeps showing up here that are, anti-Castro. And there's this guy that they say is Oswald. But Oswald's not there because he's obviously not in Dallas. He's in Mexico City. He's at the same time that this person is talking to Sylvia Odio, Oswald's talking to the Russians and the Cubans. So let's see what she has to say here, and we'll go from there.
KCBS presents Harv Morgan Contact. All right, let's have the next call. 982-7012. Go ahead, you're in contact, sir.
Mr. Liebler.
Yes.
I'd like to direct my questions primarily to you.
Yes.
On September 25, 2 Cubans and an American.
So Mr. Liebler is one of the lawyers, okay, who handled the Oswald, I believe he handled the Oswald investigation for the Warren Commission.
Visited Mrs. Odio in Dallas.
Yes.
One of these Cubans was known as Leopoldo, the other one possibly as Angelo, and the American was introduced as Leon Oswald.
Yes.
The following day, Leopoldo phoned Mrs. Odio and said that the American, namely Leon Oswald, had suggested assassinating the president. Now, I have 3 questions. Number 1, do you think that this person introduced as Leon Oswald was in fact Lee Harvey Oswald, or do you think it was someone impersonating him? And number 2, let's see, I forgot my second question.
Well, that's the question to me. Of course, he's articulated a sub-assumption here that we'll have to deal with first.
Well, you're going to answer it, Jim, as well. I appreciate that.
Go ahead.
All right. Number 2.
The question is, was this person who was introduced as Leon Oswald actually Oswald or somebody impersonating him? That's probably the second question, isn't it? Somebody impersonating him?
No, that was still the first question.
All right.
The second question is, regardless of which is the case, does this not suggest a conspiratorial relationship, at least peripheral to, if not directly connected with the assassination? And number 3 was in connection with a memorandum prepared by Hubert and Griffin for the CIA concerning Ruby and his associates and so on. And one of the men listed there was a Leopold Ramos Ducos. I'd like to know if this was Leopoldo, because it mentions under his name concerning the Odio incident. It also mentions something in connection with Ruby's connections with the anti-Castro group and procurement of arms. It seems to refer to the Nancy Rich testimony, although there's no reference in her testimony to Leopoldo.
Well, now you're talking about a preliminary memorandum that Griffin and Hubert prepared. It was actually in February or March.
Yes.
And, of course, Mrs. Odio's testimony hadn't been taken at that time, nor had the testimony of Mrs. Rick, so there's no possibility of cross-reference at that point, unless they had the investigative reports in front of them.
I presume they had FBI reports at that time.
All right. Now, the first question is whether it was Oswald or someone else.
Yes.
I'm not convinced that in fact, there was anybody in Sylvia's department, as she stated. That's point 1.
Well, you think then that Mrs. Odio either imagined this incident, as did also her sister, even though Manuel Rye said that she was a reliable person?
Just a moment, sir. Let's get the answer now.
Who said she was a reliable person?
Manuel Rye.
Yeah.
As well as several other people.
I said I'm not convinced that anybody came there, but I'm inclined to believe Mrs. Odio's testimony in certain respects.
Wow. So how can you say that it didn't happen, but you're inclined to believe what she says? That doesn't make any sense.
And let me be more precise. I'm not convinced that there was anybody there who was introduced as Leon Oswald. Period. I'm not convinced there was anybody that was introduced as Leon Oswald, because Annie Lee Odio did not testify to that, did she?
You mean Mrs. Odio's sister?
Yes, Annie Lee.
I don't recall if she did or not.
No, she didn't. She said that there were 3 people came there, and Sylvia said that one of them was introduced as Leon Oswald.
They both identified him as Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, yes. They both said they thought that it resembled pictures of Lee Harvey Oswald. I took, as you probably well know, I took Mrs. Odio's testimony. And spent considerable time discussing this with her in Dallas. I don't think that Lee Oswald was there. For many reasons. Basically, because it was almost impossible for him to have been there as a physical matter. He was in transit at that time from New Orleans to Mexico City.
There you go. So that's Mr. Liebler. I've heard Mr. Liebler speak. he never answers a question directly. He always asks a question and then tells you to provide evidence. Okay? This is what he did in the Lane debate. He debated Mark Lane at UCLA about this time, I believe, or maybe a year before. But so the question is then, okay, so Mr. Liebler is very slick and he's very slimy. He does not give you black or white. This is what happened and this is what we believe happened and here's the evidence and stuff like that. He's all over the board and leaves you very confused. But because you see how he said about, well, I spent a lot of time with Sylvia Odio and I believe her testimony. I just don't believe that she saw Oswald. Okay. So the question is then, if she didn't see Oswald, which I believe is correct, she didn't see Oswald because Oswald was in Mexico City at this time. And you're going to see here with the timeline we're going to get into after we get off Cadet. That's the only reason I'm mentioning this is because it shows you the extent of the conspiracy that's going on that Oswald is not aware of, okay? But it shows you that there are other players playing Oswald and setting him up already to be the patsy at the end of September. Okay, actually it's probably in July, August. So Oswald's been told, let's just go with this scenario. There's two ways you can think about Oswald. He's either crazy Marxist, Leninist, conspiracist, trying to get back into the Soviet Union, and he goes to Mexico to get a visa to go to, where he could easily have, gone straight to the Soviet Union, or through, Finland or East Germany. But for some reason, okay, if it's crazy Marxist Leninist Oswald, he's going to Mexico to get a visa, to get into the Soviet Union. Okay? Meanwhile, he's got a pregnant wife who's just about to give birth in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks. He's got another child and a wife to drag along in his conspiracy, to whatever he's going to do. And then if you believe that's what he's trying to do, that's what the Warren Commission is saying, then how's he going to kill the president that he doesn't even know the president's going to be in Dallas, where he's not even at? He's in New Orleans. How does he even know the president's going to be there? So why go to Cuba and to Russia and drag your pregnant wife and child along when eventually you're going to end up shooting the president in 2 months? It doesn't make any sense. And again, why would you want to say he's just going to go to Cuba and transit to the Soviet Union by himself? He's got a brand new child on the way. I can't think of many men, no matter how dedicated, would leave their pregnant wife alone, okay, at that time, to go chase off through Cuba and just to get back into the Soviet Union. You think he'd probably wait until at least he found out if it was a boy or girl, with his wife, and then chase off to the Soviet Union. And then again, all that, it still excludes him from planning to kill the president. Doesn't make any sense. Now, we switch gears and we think of Oswald, soldier, patriot. He's been given a mission. Okay, look, we're going to send your wife back to Dallas. You're going to send your wife back to Dallas, and while she's up there, on her way there, you're going to go to Mexico and stir up the shit at the Cuban and Russian embassy so we can see reactions. And this is your mission. And then just go back to see your wife in Dallas. And, congratulations on the new baby boy being born. Or baby girl, excuse me. In about 3 weeks. And your mission is to shake up the shit, and we're going to monitor how they react to you. Okay? and find out who's in charge, and here's some cash because we know you don't have any cash. So here's the money, and go do it. We're going to give you cash. We're not going to pay you a check because that leaves a trail behind. We're going to give you cash. Okay? So while he's doing that, he's following orders if you believe that he's a soldier and not just crazy Marxist Oswald. Oh, another thing about the crazy Marxist Oswald, it also sets that he doesn't know the groundwork for the assassination at the feet of Castro in Cuba for an invasion. It forces Johnson's hand where he'll have to, be stampeded into invading Cuba if it's found out that Oswald trying to get in to Cuba to somehow get to Russia, a transit visa, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that's another part that you can tell there's a conspiracy involved, that they're trying to set up the stampede that even Johnson, the new president, won't be able to resist when they find out that this guy, crazy Marxist-Leninist, who's just trying to transit through Cuba, went down to Mexico and tried to get a visa and wasn't successful in getting a visa. And, it just defies logic, all these things. And how Liebler can sit there on this radio program and say this is this and that is this and just ignore all the other things, okay? So if Oswald had just done this all by himself when we never heard of Sylvia Odio, that would be ridiculous enough. But then you throw on top of this story that someone is obviously trying to plant a seed that Oswald's crazy, but they know Oswald's not there to defend himself, okay? And I guess they're hoping that Mrs. Odio can't tell time or dates and can't figure out that, that she doesn't know what date it is. So she's going to mix up that maybe Oswald was in New Orleans or maybe came up there, or maybe Oswald was already back from Mexico City and Dallas, and maybe while Oswald's gone, they're going to hit her up. And why Sylvia Odio? Well, Sylvia Odio is a prominent, not crazy person, philanthropist for the Cuban cause. She gives money to them. She's one of the elites of Cuba, who's now living in Dallas. And so then, and I don't know if Lieber's going to go over it, but they completely ignore, even if Oswald wasn't there, even if she made it up or she imagined it, there's still 3 or 4 other people talking about killing the President of the United States, mentioning Lee Oswald, and saying he's a little loco, a little crazy. And even if you just throw all that out, you still got 3 or 4 guys going to this Cuban lady, which tells you that they know her. So this conspiracy is coming from that area. The people who are training to kill Castro are now setting the bait, the patsy, in Dallas. How do they know he's coming back to Dallas? How do they even know Lee Oswald? Why would she risk her reputation, her life even, and step out and say, hey, I heard this, these guys came by and they said this, they were going to kill the president, or this guy was going to kill the president, he's a little loco, and then even call her back the next day? Tell me, what do you think about this guy? So, you got also the same time, Kerry Thornley's coming from California, working his way back to New Orleans. So she could have saw Kerry Thornley, or she could have saw this guy Llewellyn that kind of looks like Oswald. I think Larry Crayford supposedly looks like Oswald. Oswald doesn't have an unusual look. There's a lot of people that you could pull out of pictures from that era that look just like Oswald. So it wouldn't be difficult. And if you just saw him in the dark or whatever at the front of your door, you're not going to be able to pay much attention to that. But anyway, so we'll see what Liebler says, and why would Sylvia Odio be making this up if it's not true? And how would she know about the assassination of the president in September? Because her sister obviously heard the same conversation too. So it's not like she's making it up after the fact. The sister was there. So you got two cooperating witnesses hearing them talk about killing a group of men, Cubans, talking about killing the president of the United States. Leon Oswald's going to do it. Lee Oswald's going to do it. And Lee Oswald is on his way to Mexico City. So it's an opportunity to frame him when he's not there. To poison the well. Let's see what he says.
And cross the border. You're probably familiar with the time sequence.
Yes, I noticed a tight schedule there.
Very tight schedule. It was almost impossible. If he'd have gone on an airplane and gone from New Orleans to Dallas, he could have done it. But
couldn't they have driven?
The airline manifest for that, and there was no indication.
Couldn't they have driven from New Orleans as the men said they did, or as Mrs. Odio said they said?
Pardon?
Couldn't they have driven from New Orleans as Mrs. Odio said that they said they did?
They would have had to have moved very rapidly to do so. And then Oswald was later seen on a bus, and it was identified as having been on a bus and crossed the border into Laredo. And in order to have gotten on that bus, obviously he would have had to have bought a bus ticket from Dallas, and there was no indication. We checked the bus sales of bus tickets in Dallas, and there was no indication. In fact, it was quite clear that no bus tickets had been sold from Dallas to Laredo or Mexico City that night. Now,
see, so Liebler is even making the point that there's a conspiracy. He doesn't even realize it. What he's saying is that Oswald wasn't with this group, okay, because this guy may be thinking, well, maybe this was Oswald. Liebler's even, like I said, he doesn't realize it, but he's justifying and giving evidence that there was a conspiracy because he's saying Oswald wasn't with this group, okay, because Oswald went straight from New Orleans, Houston, San Antonio, Laredo, into Mexico that way. He didn't go to Dallas, and there's no records of that. They checked. So he's even adding to it. All right, hold on 1 second.
I suppose you can make the hypothesis that he bought a bus ticket for somewhere else and then got off and bought another ticket, but and how far do you pursue these things? But in any event, no bus tickets were sold in Dallas to either Laredo or Mexico City at that time.
Okay, sir. Thank you for calling. And
all of it. Well. All right. Thank you for calling. We've just started to discuss this question.
all right, go ahead.
Go ahead. Your move.
Oh, Mom. Well, then your answer, the first part of it is that.
Do I think it was Oswald? No, I don't think it was Oswald.
I don't either.
And you don't think he was introduced as Leon?
Pardon?
You don't think he was introduced?
There was nobody else impersonating him because that whole notion seems to me falls on his face. This was at the end of September, which is over 2 months before the assassination, and anybody that would be going around impersonating Oswald in Sylvia Odio's apartment at that point, I can't imagine any conceivable purpose that would be served by that.
No, and that was...
Oh, wow. See, wow. See, so he says that, no, it's not Oswald. So he backs up the conspiracy, and then he backs out of it and says, well, there would be no reason to have a conspiracy at the end of September against the President of the United States, which doesn't make any sense because they've already announced that the President is going to be going to Texas. Right, we'll see in the timeline. I'll show you. So right after the President announces there's going to be, his press secretary announces they're going to go to Texas and have a campaign through there, that's when this group shows up at Sylvia Odio's. I'll show you after we get through these cadet testimony. But it seems to be that Liebler's talking is that it's not Oswald at Sylvia Odio, but it's nobody talking about the president getting killed. So therefore, Sylvia Odio must be lying, even though her sister saw the same guys and heard the same information. So it's just part of that same scenario. Put everything at the feet of Oswald and no one else. Ignore all this other evidence of a conspiracy and lay it just at the feet of Oswald. Okay?
No notion that the president was even coming to Dallas at that particular day.
It had been in the paper on September 13, I believe.
See, there you go.
I think that's right. But the fact of the matter is that the notion was at that point that Oswald was going to be in Cuba. Isn't that right?
That's right.
That's what he was proposing to do. He was going to go to Cuba and stay there. So how are they trying to inculpate or frame somebody in Dallas on November 22nd when there was no notion? In fact, the whole notion was contrary. But Oswald was not going to be in Dallas on November 22nd. He was on his way to Cuba.
See, Liebler just answers his own question. Okay? Oswald's fulfilling... This is why I think Oswald's a soldier. He's fulfilling his mission. Here, Oswald, today you're going to go here. Tomorrow you're going to pass out flyers. The next day you're going to go with Ferry to Clinton and register to vote there and try to get a job at the hospital. You know, all these things don't make any sense to Oswald, but he's doing them because they're paying him. Okay? You know, and then you're going to go pass out flyers, and you're going to go on the radio station. Then now we want you to go to Mexico City and shake them up there, and for security purposes, we're going to shake up and follow their communications. See, Liebler doesn't understand, or maybe he's purposely denying, that there's a conspiracy, and what they're doing, they're moving Oswald, okay, like Garrison says, like a piece on a chessboard, and Oswald has no idea where he's going to end up. Okay? They can see the plan. They see the end game. Okay? But Liebler, if he's trying to get a visa into Cuba, okay, well, how can he be part of the, how can he be part, how do you know he's going to assassinate the president in 2 months? Exactly. Oswald doesn't know this. So why, if he's going to, you can flip that and say, if he's going to kill the president, why is he trying to get in to Cuba to transit to, to Russia with a pregnant wife and a child? And, it doesn't make any sense. But then he's going to come back and kill the president of the United States? I mean, come on. Anyway, let's listen to what other junk he has to say.
Purportedly, anyhow.
Anyhow, that's right. I mean, purportedly, that's what he told his wife. He went to Mexico City. He went to the Soviet embassy and tried to get to Cuba. He went to the Cuban embassy and tried to get to Cuba. And I mean, there's three different confirmatory events here involved in his attempt to get to Cuba.
And he it's very bizarre that he would talk like that and say that, because he didn't go to the Russian embassy, okay, to get into Cuba. Okay? He went to the Cuban embassy to get into Russia. Okay? And then the only reason he went to the Russian embassy is because they told him at the Cuban embassy that in order to get a transit visa through Cuba to Russia, he's going to have to get a visa for Russia first before he gets his transit visa through Cuba. So what he's saying doesn't make any sense. He didn't go to Russia, an embassy, to get into Cuba. He went to the Cuban embassy to get into Russia. And we're going to read that testimony.
Well, there are other arguments to raise there, but how about the last part of it concerning Leopold Ramos Ducos?
Well, what about Leopold Ramos Ducos? He was involved. Wasn't he a character involved in the anti-Castro operations at one point or other? I'm not really that familiar with that aspect of it.
Well, I don't know either. I've only seen reference to him in this one place, and of course all the FBI reports are not indexed. It says here that his life was threatened by a person suggesting that the same group that would kill Ducos had been responsible for getting rid of Kennedy.
Well, who said that?
Apparently he did. This is in this memorandum to the CIA. I quoted from that.
Oh, that was the one, the Griffin-Hubert memorandum?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm just not...
And again, Liebler is either blind, stupid, or he's lying. Because if you just scratch the surface a little bit, these anti-Castro Cubans are all over the place. And then the white mercenaries, the CIA contractors that are training them are all over the place. Matter of fact, some of these guys that show up at Odio's place are Patrick Hemming, all these same guys we keep running into. Okay? Matter of fact, the FBI interviewed him the day after out in Los Angeles. We're going to come across testimony on that. Why were they... The FBI was following its leads, and the head of the FBI and CIA were shutting those things down. Okay? So Liebler's either stupid, he's ignorant, or he's lying. Okay? Because if you just scratch the surface, anywhere you look at this assassination, you see these Cubans involved. from Dealey Plaza to Sylvia Odio, and you see the setup before then. Okay? Why would someone be talking about killing the president and implying that Lee Oswald's a little crazy and that he would do it, okay, when Lee Oswald's not even there? It doesn't make any sense. But to completely do a stupid investigation like Liebler did and completely ignore the Cuban aspect is just almost criminal.
Not that familiar with this fellow Ramos Ducos. I checked out the stories from the audio end, and I didn't run across, as far as I can recall, his name from that end of the story.
Wow.
Oh, okay, then was Leopoldo ever identified?
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. And you're familiar with the rest of that story, I'm sure.
The three people the FBI thought may have been involved and then turned out not to have been.
That's right. But the commission had concluded, on the basis of other evidence, that Oswald had not been there at that time. Now, I'll go a step further with you. Even if Oswald had been there, and I don't think he was, but even if he had been there,
see,
the next question is, what's that got to do with the assassination of the president 2 months later? And I'm at a loss to make that leap, even if I'm...
You see how Liebler acts? He never answers the question. He turns it around and asks you the question, which you're going to hear the guy say, oh, I don't know, I'm just a caller.
Willing to admit, which I'm not, and I'm honestly not. I really don't think Oswald was there, and I went into great detail with Mrs. Odio on this question. I think she has her own problems and her own motivations for this story. But what would this have to do with the assassination in any way?
Well, you think she has something to gain by telling...
Okay, so it's, he's like, well, he's either ignorant or stupid or lying, because he's sitting there going, well, I don't understand. What would this incident have to do with the assassination? Well, it has to do with making out Oswald as being crazy and setting him up as the patsy. That's what the story does. Why would they waste their time? Okay, if they think about it, they've sent Oswald, or Oswald has gone to Mexico City. At the same time that Oswald is going to Mexico, this group shows up at this prominent Cuban philanthropist, donator to the Cuban cause, and they got a fake Oswald there, and they're talking about he wants to assassinate the president 2 months before the president even shows up in Texas. That's laying the groundwork to make, they're using that, they use the story to make him look guilty, but they say, oh no, it doesn't have anything to do with the assassination. Totally ridiculous. Either Liebler is completely ignorant or he's completely lying.
Telling this story?
Yes, I do.
Let's get back to that. What would this have to do with the assassination, sir, in your mind?
Well, allegedly, this Oswald, this, of course, is third-hand information, but allegedly he had suggested assassinating the president, so there was something there, and also that he did have certain affiliations with other people and activities getting arms to go to Cuba.
No, this had nothing to do with arms to Cuba.
Yes, I believe it did.
So, you see how they're slowly setting up Oswald before the assassination. He's doing these assignments and doesn't realize what's going on, that he's being set up. So, they've got him, out there passing out fair play for Cuba flyers. That's one. That gets him noticed in the media. He's doing it right in front of the Trade Center where Clay Shaw's working. He's got his office right there where Bannister, who infiltrates college campuses, former FBI guy, and David Ferry and them are running Cubans and guns through his office. They got him out on the street getting into, trying to infiltrate an anti-Castro group falsely. That's number 2. Number 3, he's getting into fights and getting arrested. And instead of just paying the fine, he decides to stay in jail. That way he gets a record. And then he talks to an FBI agent. That's number 5 right there. There's no reason for him to talk for an FBI agent for getting to disturbing the peace charge. Doesn't make any sense. And then, then that gets him a spot on the radio to discuss who he is and what he's all about. The Fair Play for Cuba Committee, which he's not even a real member. He's a fake member. He's made up his own flyers, made up his own cards. He sent in an application, but he's not a real member. He's the only member. Okay? That's basically, like I said, it's a false program to get people to contact him, and then when they contact him because they're interested, then he provides their information to Bannister and the FBI. You see, it's a way of drawing people out that have communist sympathies. And then he gets on the radio station. That's number 7. Excuse me, the television station has this debate with Bringuier. That's number 7. And now they got him going to Mexico City. That's number 8. Okay. And then number 9, while he's on his way to Mexico City, they've got this false Oswald with this false group saying they're going to talking about killing the president 2 months before the president shows up in Dallas. Okay? So don't you think it's strange? Don't you think it's strange that after the president decides that he's going to go to Texas, okay, that's when they send Oswald back to Dallas? Or that's when Oswald goes back to Dallas. Oswald has no idea. If Oswald's just this crazy nut, he doesn't know what city the president's going to show up in. He doesn't know he's going to get lucky enough to get a job right in the same building that has access to a 6th floor that's overlooking the route of the president's route that he's going to take through Dallas. I mean, Oswald's got to be the smartest or the luckiest damn assassin in the history of assassins to get that damn lucky. And like Mr. Liebler just said, well, how does Oswald know he's going to kill the president in 2 months if he's trying to get into Cuba? You just answered your own fucking question, dude. All right, so we're going to move on here, get into more documents. Now, look at this memo here, okay? This is to the director of the FBI from SAC. And I'm not exactly sure what SAC is. I think it's like special something. It's like special operations, I guess. They look at specific things. Now, you see how it says it's classified, it's confidential. They didn't release this stuff until like the 1990s. See, 1983. But this is from June 27th, 1968. This is William Gadet. The FBI director is Hoover at the time, so FBI director is going to know about this guy. Okay? And it says on June 10, 1968, the files of the Office of the Security, USDS, concerning the subject were reviewed by Special Agents James Price. These files contain the following pertinent information. By communication date of March 18th, 1963, Representative Hale Boggs, Congress of the United States, wrote to Robert J. Tepper, officer in charge, Caribbean Affairs. Now remember, Hale Boggs was on the Warren Commission. It was also, I believe it was Hale Boggs that was the one that was complaining, okay, to Garrison that he didn't believe Oswald could have been the lone assassin to do that. Anyway, we'll keep reading. Boggs advised that he thought a proposal for the subject concerning a report on Haiti. Now remember, at this time, 1968, actually, this is right before George de Mohrenschildt goes to Haiti, had a great deal of merit, and he hoped the department would consider the subject proposal favorably. Now this is also, 8 months before the assassination. In writing to Tepper, Boggs described the subject as our mutual friend. It was noted that the file contained communication from the Department of State to various U.S. embassies in Latin America concerning trips through Latin America by the subject. So he's talking about Gadet, or it could be talking about de Mohrenschildt. These communications were sent in 1951 and 1952 and 1957, and requested that the various embassies extend the usual courtesies to the subject. So, he's a contract agent. Audit is a contract agent for the CIA. Okay, so he's going to stop in to these embassies along the way and debrief, give his information, what he's seen, what he's heard, things like that. He's going to be debriefing at the embassies, and he's asking that courtesy be extended to those embassies. In these communications, the subject was described as the editor of the Latin American Reports, that's Cadet, by communication dated July 7th, 1947. Now, don't forget, this is right around the same time that that's like Roswell and the CIA was created. Wow, interesting. Walter J. Donnelly, U.S. Embassy in San Jose, Costa Rica, advised the USDS of the recent visit of William Audit, president of the Latin American Reports Incorporated, New Orleans, to San Jose. I'm just looking at these other markings here. You see how they were reviewing this every couple of years? And they put a stamp on it. Eventually, you see it gets released with the ARB in, 94? Very interesting. Donnelly described Audit as the former executive secretary of the Coordination Committee in Costa Rica. The communication advised that in addition to obtaining information for the Latin American Report and attempting to sell the service to the government and Costa Rican businessmen, Audit was also interested in obtaining information about iron ore deposits in Costa Rica. Wow, so he's doing almost the same thing that De Mohrenschildt was doing. Matter of fact, I think De Mohrenschildt was in Costa Rica, wasn't he? The communication indicated that Audit, maybe I'm mispronouncing it, Gaudet, or maybe it's Gaudet, maybe it's French, I'm not sure. It's probably Gaudet because it's New Orleans, it's French. So it's probably Gaudet, whatever it is, was obtaining this information on behalf of the Bethlehem Steel Corporation. So he's working as a journalist, but he's also scouting for other corporations in South America for them. In the communication, Audit was described as having a wide circle of friends among the Costa Rican businessmen. And see, this is what you do as you go around collecting your intelligence. You keep trying to expand your friends. You're going to these business parties, these dinner parties, and you're listening to the whatever chatter at these dinner parties, and then you're reporting that back to the local embassy, to the local CIA contact there. Pretty typical. All right. Let's see. By communication, dated 6/6/45. God, he's been around for quite a while. Hallett Johnson, U.S. Embassy in San Jose, Costa Rica, advised the USDS of the efficient work done by William Audit as Executive Secretary for the Coordination Committee for Costa Rica and press field representatives for Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. So they're definitely using even a pre-Mockingbird type agent to run around and pose as a newspaper man in these foreign countries, build contacts, and just listen to the scuttlebutt, the rumors, what's going on, and then report back to the government and the CIA there. It says communication commented that Audit had been efficiently carrying out the press, radio, and moving pictures program. Wow. By communication date of May 18th, 1946, George Scheer, U.S. Embassy, Ciudad Trujillo, see now he's in Dominican Republic, advised of the USDS of the recent visit of William George Audit. This guy gets around, I swear to God, as a new publication of the International Information sponsored by the United States News of Washington. Now let's not forget, okay, that Bannister was also chairman or president or whatever of the Anti-Communist League of the Latin America, of the Americas, okay? And also they had their own little news letter that went around and provided information to world leaders in Latin America also. Let's see. The communication described the cadet as formerly having been employed with the Office of Coordination of Inter-American Affairs. It noted that cadet attempted without success to interview President Trujillo. The communication noted that the World Report would not adopt a sympathetic attitude towards the dictator Trujillo as long as cadet represented its interests in the Caribbean. It was noted that this communication was classified as confidential. Now remember, Trujillo was a dictator, and I believe some of these anti-Castro Cubans were trying to even get rid of him. And let's not also forget that Johnson eventually ends up invading the Dominican Republic back in the 1960s also. Sending in U.S. Marines. Washington Field Office at Washington, D.C. will report pertinent information from NIS files when available for review. All right, let's see what else we got here. SAC New Orleans. Okay, so this is a special agent in charge in New Orleans, June 28th, 1968. This is right around the time of the Garrison trial against Shaw. So it says William Sidney Gadat, Latin America, roulette of June 14, 1968. The review of the investigation into this matter disclosed that on 11/6/1967, confidential informant number 1488-S reported that the well-placed personnel with the United Fruit Company, New Orleans. Now, let's not forget, there's a connection between United Fruit, the Riley Coffee Company, and Bannister and Shaw. Okay? Hold on one second. Let's stop here. So here's United Fruit in New Orleans. It's right outside of the quarter. And it's just literally one block over from Magazine Street. And let's not forget that Oswald was right down here. Hold on one second. Yeah. Hold on one second. All right, so geography basically describes everything, okay? So let's just reorient ourselves again, and that way you can understand what's going on. So this is the Riley Coffee Company right here. There's Magazine Street. This right here, actually no, right here is Lafayette Street, where Oswald had his office, Bannister had his office. This is Lafayette Park. This is the federal building where the FBI, the CIA was located. And 2 blocks away, okay, is United Fruit Company. United Fruit is an importer of fruit from South America. They're going to have an interest in the stability of these countries and that they don't fall into communist dictatorships. They lose all their profits and all this kind of stuff. And let's not forget, okay, that Oswald, let's see, where's this street? Yeah, here's Canal Street. So Oswald was right here on Canal Street, 3 blocks away, passing out flyers in front of the Trade Mart. Okay? So United Fruit Company fits right in the picture there. All right, let's see what else we got. A Bureau SIS representative in the American Embassy, San Salvador, El Salvador, on May 1st, 1943? Wow, Cadet's been working quite a while. Reported to the, this is like 20 years before the assassination. Reported to the, so what you have is a seasoned CIA contractor. Been working for them for 20 years out of New Orleans. Okay. And Oswald goes to get a visa at the Mexican consulate, and on the list for getting visas, this seasoned CIA contractor is the next guy behind Oswald. And he sits there and says, well, I was trying to get a visa, but I never saw Oswald, and I don't know how my name got, right behind Oswald. But then he says in this other memo we were just reading, he didn't know Oswald, but he thought he was a grimy little, nervous guy that couldn't shoot and didn't think he pulled off the assassination. There had to have been other people involved. I mean, we've got a seasoned CIA contractor that's going around all over Central America, okay, and he shows up right in the line behind Oswald to get the visa at the same time Oswald's getting the visa. Okay, because they're passing out these visas in the numbered order there. Okay, so he's guiding Oswald. Oswald's a nervous little twit that doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Here's your assignment. Go take this guy down to the Mexican consulate and help him get a visa so we can send him on his little trip to Mexico. Matter of fact, go to Mexico and follow him and make sure he stays out of fucking trouble. Okay? So that's what he's doing. That is exactly what he's doing. This is how you find out who you're dealing with. Okay? It says that Cadet and one Richard Briggs, who were then with the Office of the Coordination of Inter-American Affairs in San Jose, Costa Rica, had acted in the indiscreet manner in discussing in public places business matters which conversations were overheard. Furthermore, they disclosed to persons regarded as almost strangers that a bureau agent was connected in an undercover capacity with the American Embassy in Costa Rica. So they're talking shit to make themselves look bigger, and they get caught or overheard. It is further noted that the subject has been involved in 2 divorce proceedings, was sued on several occasions for back alimony payments, was regarded in the past as a poor credit risk, and in the late 1950s was a near alcoholic. You see, this is the kind of person that they definitely would want to use, okay? Because he's in trouble, they got alimony payments are due, he's an alcoholic. You're definitely going to want to use this one because you can always just deny and say, you give him a mission to accomplish, he gets it done, you give him the money in cash, and you move on. Okay? But they can always deny, oh, no, we would never work with someone like that, he's an alcoholic, da-da-da-da-da. That's the perfect candidate. Same thing with Oswald. Accordingly, your request to designate Cadet as a PSI is denied. PSI. I'm not sure what a PSI is. Hold on one second. Maybe I can find out. Alright, so it says here, PSI intelligence abbreviation is a personal security investigation. Now, what does that mean in context to what we're looking at? This is a military term. Or involved in security of some kind. So it says, according to request to designate Cadet as a personal security investigation is denied. However, we may use him as the source of information in this regard. However, you are instructed. So they're trying to promote him, I guess, to an investigator, but the head suits don't like the idea. Again, this document's not released until 1994, unbelievably, almost 30 years later. Now this one's secret. Wow. Was formerly secret or top secret. Huh. As a freelance journalist and then later returned to New Orleans where he was connected with the International News Service. In 1937, Cadet was stationed with the International News Service in Atlanta. Good Lord, he's been doing this quite a while. And remained with the International News Service until 1942, when he was appointed correspondent to the Inter-American Affairs Department with the United States government. New Orleans files do not contain any information as to the significance, if any, of Cadet's contact with Bernard Ribot. So again, just to emphasize this, what do you think the chances are that the assassin of the President of the United States, 2 months before he kills the President, is going to be in line to get a visa to go to Mexico. And the next person to get a visa after him to go to Mexico is a former government employee, CIA contractor. What do you think the chances of that being a coincidence are? I'd say pretty damn fucking remote. I'd say it's like getting struck by lightning like 10 times in the same spot within like a couple of minutes. So what that tells me is that they're using Audit. Here's your assignment for today. We want to take you, this loser, down to the Mexican consulate and help him get a damn visa because he's so incompetent that we can't trust him to do it on his own. And then go to Mexico and watch him or go with him. He obviously didn't go with him because there's no one that saw him in the bus, so maybe they followed him behind him. Anyway, WFO Airtel to Bureau, December 2nd, 1955, reported that this is some kind of informant number, advised on 11/30/1955 that an opposition newspaper to the present Costa Rican government published an editorial quoting from a Latin American report prepared by William Audit. The report stated that a revolution would occur in Costa Rica within 60 days. And apparently it did, because I seem to remember there was a really, really violent revolution that occurred, and it was so violent and so destructive that they actually ended up in Costa Rica outlawing the military. And Costa Rica is one of the few countries that doesn't have a standing military, and they only have like a security police force or something like that. So he was right on the money on that one. Let's see. And see, that's what you do. You send your guys down there, disguised as news reporters. They're chatting with their sources. They're chatting with government officials. So what do you think about this new mining project? What do you think about this new American policy? And then they're getting information. They're making friends. Okay. And then they're reporting all this information back to their contacts in the CIA at the embassy. Of course, they're getting paid for these reports. So that makes them a contractor. They're not just getting paid and then reporting what they hear. They're reporting what they hear, and then they're getting paid on that. That makes the difference there, you see? All right, so let's see what else. Stated that Audit lives and works out of New Orleans, and while the source... And see, this is when Oswald, just before he goes into the Marines, did not know that Audit obtained his information, that in the past Audit information had been remarkably accurate. Well, he's got a bunch of contacts. Bureau letter to New Orleans, November 7th, 1967. So this is some kind of... Somebody's gone in and pulled his file. And then they've done a synopsis of the files. And not really in chronological order. But for some reason his name came up. In the Garrison investigation. That's what they're doing. They're reviewing to see if there's any danger of this guy spilling the beans. Okay? That's exactly what's going on. Okay? So, that's exactly what's going on. Garrison's running around, and he comes across this guy's name. And now they're trying to find out more about him. So the Bureau, or the CIA, is trying to cover their ass and figure out, okay, is this guy, how much information does he have? Let's review it and see if he's a danger. Does he need to be talked to, bribed, told to keep his mouth shut, eliminated? They're trying to assess. This is an assessment report on Audit, because he's not a CIA employee, he's a contractor. So they're trying to assess what he's done in the past, how reliable he is, and can we trust him? Okay, and then if we can't trust him, there's a couple options. They're either going to tell him to keep his mouth shut, they're going to bribe him with money, they're going to tell him to hide, go away, or they're going to kill him. One of those things. He's going to have an accident. This is what they're doing. This is a risk assessment is exactly what's going on here. That's why this is top secret for 30 fucking years. You don't just do a background report, biography on some news guy, okay, and keep it secret for 30 fucking years. This is an assessment, a risk assessment on Cadet. This is exactly what this is. They got another informant advise on November 6, 1967, that he had made inquiries with well-placed individuals within the United Fruit Company in New Orleans, and these individuals advised that William Cadet, publisher of the Latin American Report, has been a reporter in the tropics for over 20 years. These individuals described Cadet as an opportunist who probably could not be trusted. There you go. There's the risk report right there. So what they're doing also is they're pulling their files and they're looking at it, but they're also reaching out to their informants. The special agent in charge in New Orleans for the FBI and the CIA is reaching out to their informants that they know and have them ask around and find out what the other people think about Cadet. So there's a mark against him right there that he can't be trusted. While Cadet was writing articles favorable to the United Fruit Company concerning his operations in Latin America, he was on the other hand threatened United Fruit personnel with adverse publicity if United Fruit did not furnish Cadet with certain information he desired. So yeah, he's just using that, threat to get more information so he could sell back to the government. It is the consensus of opinion within the United Fruit Company that Cadet should probably not be trusted, since it's felt that he would use any set of circumstances to his own end for purposes of gaining information for his publications. Well, that makes sense. I completely understand that. Alright, so source advised he is not personally acquainted with Cadet and knows him only by reputation following his inquiries as set forth above. So this source, this confidential source of the FBI, has never met Cadet, never talked to him, but he's talking to other people that have met Cadet and told this source about it. Source stated that there has apparently never arisen a question of Cadet's lack of patriotism to the United States, and that the only question concerning him is the lack of business ethics. So what they're doing there, okay, is they're going to try to appeal to Cadet to keep quiet with Garrison on a patriotic type level, okay? But he's also kind of unethical, so they're going to try to bribe him with some money too to also keep him quiet. This is what a risk assessment does. Where's your vulnerability, and how do we plug the holes, I guess you could say. Bureau letter to New Orleans, December 8th, 1967, advised that the Central Intelligence Agency on December 1st, 1967, reported that Cadet was utilized as a source for foreign positive intelligence information during 1953. Further, Cadet has not been used as a source by the CIA since 1953, and has never been utilized as an operational capacity by the CIA, and the CIA does not possess any derogatory information concerning Cadet. So what they're saying there is that whoever put Cadet, this is what they're saying indirectly, is that whoever put Cadet in the same line as Oswald wasn't connected with the higher-ups, at least on the Latin American side of the Central Intelligence Agency. The people that watch Latin America and report back and do reports to the president, those people didn't use him, hadn't gotten information from him since 1953. There may be lower people, maybe involved with this Cuban thing, definitely involved in the assassination, that were using him to, shadow, assist Oswald. All right, and then we'll go on this we'll finish up this page, and then we'll end there. Now, see, they're using this PSI. This is a guy here who is a PSI. So let's see. PSI is a personnel security investigation. Ricardo Robles, who furnished information concerning Latin America on March 7th, 1968, was unable to furnish any pertinent information concerning Gadet. Likewise, during February and March 1968, the following PSI I's could furnish no information concerning Gadet. So these are other people that they have. These are other contractors, is what they're saying. And they didn't know Gadet. So apparently he's not, by 1968, he's not very active. It says, okay, that's another informant, advised on February 23rd, 1968, that the Gadet was an alcoholic and close to being an alcoholic in the late 1950s. Gadet drank very heavily and had financial problems during this period. He once wrote an article for dictator Trujillo, then head of the Santo Domingo government. You see, he's been overthrown by this time by Johnson. This article was very pro-Trujillo and was believed to have been dictated by Trujillo and one of his high right men. Source described Gadet as easygoing and competent writer. He is still believed to be with the Latin American Report. However, he may not do some freelance writing. He may do some freelance writing under a pen name. So apparently, Gadet's not going to South America anymore. All right, so we're going to stop here. And but that gives us a lot of good information. We're going to keep going through all this information. But again, you got to ask yourself, you got this guy who's a contractor, obviously working for the CIA and reporting back what he hears, the scuttlebutt, okay? What he's talking to these Latin American leaders and senators and other newsmen down there, and he's keeping his ears open, and he's writing reports, okay, and he's giving that to the CIA, and then they can use that information from other reports that they get to put together exactly what's going on in that country, you know, whether it's Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Santo Domingo, Haiti. They've got other people in other countries like the Mornschild, other places doing the same thing, and they're going to have multiple people in different countries, so they can get multiple different, you know, reports back, and then they can get kind of a consensus of what they're hearing there. And you know, it's just all intelligence to keep up with what's going on there. And like I said, a news reporter can walk around freely, talk to other people, and not be followed around like a diplomat would be, or a member of the embassy staff. And more embassy staff is going to be more restricted. But a journalist can go wherever he wants, you know. So that's why they're using journalists to feed back information to them. And of course he's paying them also. And you got to figure they like him because he's in debt and alimony. They're going to talk about this next. He's an alcoholic, so he's going to want that money. So in order to get that money, he's going to do unscrupulous things and get information and push to get information that they're going to want. And they're going to want people like that, make them go-getters, okay? Anyway, that's enough of that. We'll pick this up tomorrow. But like I said, let me tie this together. So again, you got to think about what is a career CIA informer, contractor, FBI informer doing in the, you know, getting a visa right behind Wadswald 2 months before he's going to assassinate the president. Kind of strange, isn't it? Like I said, it's like getting struck by lightning 10 times within a couple of minutes. Doesn't make any sense. All right, take care.